Now, in front of me here, I have the TaylorMade Stealth drivers, which are new for 2022. You've got three options to choose from. There's the Stealth Plus, which has a 10-gram sliding weight track in it. There's the standard Stealth, and then the Stealth HD, which is designed to be the most forgiving and also has a draw bias built into it. Now, I've hit these three drivers on a launch monitor. I've hit them on the range. I've tested them up against older generation products, and I've used one of them out on the golf course as well. So the question is, should you be switching into a carbon-faced driver this year? Let's find out. Okay, so let's start with the looks, because I think that's going to be the big talking point here because of the red face that TaylorMade have gone for. Now, before I go any further, please do hit the pause button, leave some comments in the box below. What do you think of the red face of the TaylorMade Stealth? Be really interested to hear what you have to say. Now, TaylorMade have gone for a red face because they want to highlight the new technology that's at play. So that it has a carbon face. TaylorMade say that in the Stealth driver, that should deliver a better energy transfer into the ball, so it should deliver more ball speed and more distance. And actually the face of this driver is a little bit bigger than the previous generation, so it should also be a little bit more forgiving as well. Now, we will find out about those things when we get onto the performance section of this video, but just in terms of looks, I guess it could be a bit of a Marmite thing. Some people won't like it. I really like the red face. I think it makes it look very cool, very modern. And actually, when you put it down behind the ball, that red is fairly sort of, it's a good color. It's not too in your face, it's not too bright. And actually, it didn't put me off while I was using this out on the golf course, but it does make it stand out. So I think it's a really good balance on that front. Now, in terms of the overall aesthetic that you get from the Stealth drivers, there's something that I loved and something that I wasn't quite so keen on. So what I love about it is that kind of modern, cool, stealth-like aesthetic. You can see it's got this very dark matte black finish on the crown, which makes the driver look quite compact down behind the ball. I think it looks great in the bag, and it looks really sort of aspirational down behind the ball, the sort of thing that every golfer will want to be able to use. But I'm not so sure this is quite as inviting to hit as the previous generation Sim 2. So I've got the Sim 2 Max in my hands here, and you can see gone is the chalk white leading edge, and the crown of the driver is a little bit darker in the new generation of this. Now, for me, that makes it possibly a little bit less confidence inspiring than the Sim 2 Max. And I think it's important to say that all three drivers in the Stealth family look very, very similar. They all look, because of that black finish, quite compact down behind the ball. The HD version that I'm holding here just sits a fraction closed at address. Otherwise, I think I'd struggle to tell the difference between them down behind the ball. And I must say, I was probably slightly surprised that they didn't soften the look of the HD version just a little bit, given that the sort of the handicap profile that this golf club is aimed at being slightly higher, to make it look and feel that little bit more enticing, confidence inspiring down behind the ball. I think I'm probably splitting hairs here, because there's no two ways about it. This feels premium. It probably feels more premium than the previous generation. But as a result, I think it also feels probably a little bit less confidence inspiring down behind the ball. I love the way that it looks, but I'm not sure it will be for everyone. Okay, so in this part of the video, I'm going to look at the sound and the feel of the new Stealth driver. And it's a really important part of the overall package here because of the new material that's been brought in. So obviously Stealth has this carbon face to it, and that is going to change the way that the driver sounds, presumably, over what we had with previous generations Sim and Sim 2. And for me, as I first heard about the fact they were using carbon in the face, I have to say alarm bells started going off in my head, because when we first started to see carbon crowned drivers, probably, I'm thinking about 10 years ago or so now, there was a tendency for some of those early drivers to feel a little bit dull and a little bit sort of lifeless through the impact. Question is, will we get something similar with the Stealth drivers? And it's particularly important, this point, because last year's Sim 2 and the previous generation Sim drivers, and before that actually, the M drivers from TaylorMade, they felt fantastic. For me, the Sim 2 last year was just about the best feeling driver on the market. It struck that brilliant balance between, it was it was powerful without being too high pitched. And I love the way the Sim drivers felt. So I'm going to hit 2 shots with the Sim 2 Max, and then I'm going to hit another 2 shots with the standard Stealth. Hopefully you should be able to pick up through the microphones the differences in the way the 2 drivers sound, if there are any differences. So, starting with the Sim 2 Max, give it a hit. So for me, the new generation sounds and feels a fraction higher pitched than the Sim 2 Max from last year. Now I hope you're able to pick that up. For me, they're in the same ballpark as they were last year, TaylorMade, and that's a good thing. As I said, because at the beginning I was worried that the Stealth drivers would feel a little bit dull and a little bit lifeless, but they don't. If anything, they are a little bit higher pitched than last year's Sim range. Is that better? Well, I think that's sort of down to the individual. Some people will want that higher pitched feel, sound, other people won't. For me, it's not too drastically different, and that's a good thing. On to the all-important performance part of this video. And I'm going to show you the launch monitor data here from when I tested the drivers at King's Golf Studio, so indoors, using a TrackMan, Titleist Pro V1X golf balls. I had the same Aldila Ascent 60S shaft in each of the heads, and each of the heads was set to 9 degrees. So it was a like for like comparison. But before I show you that data, it is important to say that you've got to take this part of the video with a healthy pinch of salt. I'm a 3 handicap golfer, I'm not a pro. And also, there were some sort of differences in the way that I was swinging the club throughout the testing session. It was quite a long session, so do take it with a pinch of salt. But I do think there are some important comparisons to be made. I started by hitting the Sim Max driver from 2020 and then the Sim 2 Max driver from 2021 to get some base numbers, and here they are. Overall, really impressed by how both of those drivers performed. Question is, how did the standard Stealth compare? Because this is the direct comparison between the Max version of those and the standard version of this driver. And as you can see, it was pretty good. But there's an important point to make here. So I was not trying to swing the club any harder or faster while I was testing the Stealth, but it turns out I was delivering more club head speed, and it did deliver a jump in terms of ball speed. Now, is that down to the carbon face, or is that down to just the fact that I was swinging the club a little bit faster? I'll let you decide on that. But what I will say is the overall performance was very, very good. So I was hitting the ball a bit further, and the ball flight was just spot on for me. So launching high, but low spinning, and the ball just hanging in the air for a very long time. And I think the important point to make here is take a look at the smash factor. So yes, I was swinging the club faster, and yes, it was delivering more ball speed, but the smash factor was slightly down with the standard Stealth driver, and yet I was still able to get all that performance out of it. So I was really impressed by the overall performance of the standard Stealth, but I also hit the Plus version and the HD version. So for me, with the Plus, it was a fraction lower spinning, not much. It was definitely lower launching and lower flying than the standard version of the Stealth. It delivered fantastic overall distance. Because that ball flight was lower, carry distance was still fantastic, but the overall distance was quite a bit longer for me during that testing session. The HD version was the one I probably struggled with the most. And I think that's because, to my eye, it just sits a fraction closed down behind the ball at address. And I'm always slightly nervous about hitting the ball left off the tee. So for me, I ended up hitting it a bit out to the right. Not in any trouble, but out to the right-hand side. And I think that's probably more down to sort of the way in which I was reacting to the look of the driver down behind the ball. The overall performance was still very good though. You'll notice it spun a little bit more. The overall distance was still very good. But for me, of the 3 drivers, I thought that the standard Stealth and the Plus version were quite similar. The HD version definitely delivering a higher ball flight. Now, I also took the standard Stealth driver out with me onto the golf course and played 18 holes with it. I put an Arcos sensor in the grip, and what you're looking at here is the data from that round of golf. So I hit it 11 times, and of those 11 times, I hit the fairway 7 times. But what I would say is that the 4 occasions where I didn't hit the fairway, I wasn't off by very much, I didn't lose a golf ball. And actually it was out on the golf course where I was really impressed with the performance of the Stealth driver. It was the consistency of the ball flight and the combination of how accurate I was with it, combined with the overall distance that I was getting, that really stood out for me. Given I hit this, it was December when I was hitting this, about 10 degrees out, so pretty cold and very wet. And I hit one drive that went 299 yards, which in that environment is absolutely fantastic for me. So yeah, the Stealth drivers, as I think you can probably gather by now, I was really impressed by the performance of. Is it a massive jump forward for TaylorMade, a giant leap forward? I'm not entirely sure that it is, but performance-wise, in my hands, I have to say, I think it is an improvement. Okay, so there you have it. That's my review of the TaylorMade Stealth drivers for 2022. Now, it's important to say that the Stealth Plus comes in with a recommended retail price in pounds of $499, whereas the other two are $469. And if it was my choice, even though I was slightly longer with the Stealth Plus, I think I would go with the standard Stealth model because of the overall performance package that it offered me, that combination of being very forgiving, the flight being very consistent, and it also offered me plenty of distance while I was out on the golf course. But the overall feeling for me here is that these are three very impressive drivers, both in terms of the way in which they look, which might not be for everybody, but certainly in terms of the way in which they perform. What do you think? Please do leave some comments below. It'd be really interested to hear what you've got to say about the new TaylorMade drivers for 2022. But for now, from the London Club, it's goodbye.